Hi, everybody. Welcome. Frank had a few thoughts. I know that's scary sometimes when people hear that, but it's cold and wet and rainy outside. It's the new year according to the Gregorian calendar, anyway. See, what does that mean? Well, even the old Roman calendar started in March until Julius Caesar modified the Egyptian calendar and made it his own, and then you have the Julian calendar. And eventually the Gregorian calendar replaces that. What's the point? A new year or a new year? That's a word play. We'll look at that. As I sit here in this nice, cold, wet day, I think about something the scripture also says when it talks about the former rain and the latter rain. This all has to do with the crops and the rainy season in Israel. A lot of people want to make a spiritual, sort of a mystical application for the former rain and latter rain in Scripture. There might be some evidence of that, but here's the whole point. There's a reality in the real world of a former rain and a latter rain for the crops and the harvest season. All the biblical feasts are arranged around this season. In fact, we're told in Exodus or Shemot chapter 12 that the Most High speaks to Moshe, and specifically in verse 2 of this chapter, he says that the new moon will be the new moon of the first month of the first year for you, and I'm paraphrasing. It actually says this new moon is the beginning of the new moons for you. It's the first new moon of the year. The Hebrew calendar, if you don't know, the months are set by the moon and the year by the sun. Proper biblical calendar considers both the sun, the moon, and even considers the constellations. We won't get into a calendar study today, but let's talk about the former rain and the latter rain. This year, if it's raining like it is where I'm at in Israel, it's going to prepare the first grain crop of the year, the barley crop, should be in abundance. The barley crop is one of the factors in the whole determining the year thing indirectly. People want to say, oh, the barley has nothing to do with it. Not directly, but indirectly, it's a contributing factor to something because based on what happens in Egypt and the 10 plagues. But let's look at the former rain and latter rain as we look at your life. Sometimes there's seasons of dryness or drought. Texas has surely been in one for quite a while. And then there's the need for rain. In fact, a lot of rain in Texas for that matter. A lot of rain in Israel because the Kinneret or the lake there has to be filled up. It's a major water supply. But what about your own life? Times of dryness, times of rain. What's the rain to do? Produce a crop. So if we look at the spiritual or metaphorical significance of the former rain and latter rain, and we apply it to our lives, what do we see? There's a time of harvest, a time of dryness, a time of abundance. This is the cycle. So what things in your life are the rains preparing? Because people want to think of rains as a bad thing. Unless it's a horrible driving rain, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Then there's the time of harvest. You don't get a harvest unless you do some sowing. And no, this is not a prosperity message about me taking your tithes. I don't want your money. It's about what are you sowing in your life to bring forth a good harvest. Yeshua, the Master, talked about 4 types of ground and sowing seed. That seed being the word of the Almighty Yah. And it was sown on 4 types. Someday I'll learn to talk, as I usually say, 4 types of ground. Only one of those 4 types produced fruit. The rest had problems. The first type was ground on which the seed fell, but because it wasn't prepared, it was hard, the birds came and took it away. Yeshua makes an analogy of the evil one here taking the seed away. So even though the seed is good, the ground's not ready to receive the seed. So you can't minister to people that are not ready to receive it. Found that out a long time ago. But in your own heart, is your heart, your mind, your spirit prepared for the word of Yah to grow in your life? The next type is rocky soil. It has some dirt on it. Things get started good, but the plants don't get a good root structure and therefore don't survive very long. Near where I live, there's some farmland, but some of it's rocky. So they have to take some of the rocks out. Some places are worse than others for the soil to be usable. So what are the rocks? The things that inhibit the seed in your life from taking root. Think about that. Then there's another type of ground on which the seed starts out good, but other things weren't pulled out of the garden. The weeds weren't dug out at the right time, and the weeds choke out the intended fruit of the intended word of Yah. So what's growing in your life contrary to the word of Yah that's choking out its growth in your life? Those are just a few things to consider here in this former rain season as we approach the biblical New Year, which is the month of Aviv, in which the Passover takes place. So examine your hearts, your mind. Make sure it's not hard soil and the evil one takes away the word because there's no place for it to take root. Make sure there's not a lot of rocks or things that encumber the seed from growing. Make sure you're good soil, and don't let the weeds, the cares of this life, the deceitfulness of riches, the fears, the unbelief choke out the word of Yah. Let it be a good crop this year. Let it grow up to maturity in your life so that you can be considered good soil. Well, that's Frank's thoughts for this cold, wet, rainy day, and we're looking forward to the real new year called the Aviv. See y'all soon. Shalom on your home.